My name is Melissa, and 36 years ago, I was born with strabismus, which means that my eyes weren't pointing in the same direction. So for the first 32 years of my life, I was only using one eye, and I didn't have any depth perception. Through years of vision therapy and a strabismus surgery, my eyes are pretty much straight now, and I'm able to use them together to have some pretty amazing depth perception. This whole video series is all about helping you see the transformation that I've experienced going from a 2D to a 3D world. It is so amazing, and I'm excited to share it with you. Let's jump in. Today I'm going to talk to you about how driving has changed. So before I did vision therapy and had surgery, when I would drive, there were several things that would become quite an issue. One of them was lane control. So I could never tell if I was in the middle of my lane. And so I was constantly watching the yellow line or the white line, trying to figure out if I was even in my lane. I know that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it was something that I was constantly trying to think about. And I'm like, how do you tell if you're in your lane or not? That was a big question that I had. Another issue I had was, especially at night, I just didn't feel like I could see anything. There were oncoming lights. I would stare at the lights or stare away from the lights and try to look at the side of the road. And I felt so unsafe. And there were many times I pulled over and waited for oncoming traffic to pass, because I live kind of out in the country, and so there's not a lot of street lights. If there's a lot of street lights, it's not as much of a problem, but out on the country roads, it's really challenging for me to just especially know where I am at, where I was at in relation to oncoming traffic. And there were times where I actually would veer off the road because I was trying to avoid the oncoming car. I always felt like they were coming right towards me. It was kind of scary. I actually stopped driving at night when I was about 31 years old. I just stopped driving at night because I had close calls and it was too scary. So it was always terrifying driving at night. Another thing was just that I didn't necessarily notice then, but I notice now that I don't see this way, is I kind of had tunnel vision. Kind of like when I would drive ATVs. I talked about this in the last video. I was more like, it's called sequential seeing. So when I was trying to kind of put together what I was seeing on the roadway, I would look over here and see a sign, and look over here and see a car, and look up and see the stop sign, so I was moving all around. I was looking at the lane or the lines to see if I was in my lane. So it was sequential, right? I'm looking from place to place to place to place, and then trying to put it all together into one. Well, that is not a very efficient way of seeing, and it definitely leaves a lot more room for error because you're not seeing things at the same time. You're not judging their distances and how close they are together, and so there are definitely close calls. Let's see, another thing, if it ever was raining or snowing, just pull over, call someone to come rescue me, because there was no way I was going to be able to see. I felt like I couldn't see anything. I felt like I was stuck inside this car, and there was the whole windshield was covered. Even if it wasn't raining bad, I just felt like I couldn't see. If someone slammed on their brakes in front of me, well, okay, half a mile ahead of me or 100, far, far away, not safe. And they even just turned on their brakes and started slowing down, but I could see their brake lights. I would slam on my brakes and even sometimes gasp or scream because I thought they were right in front of me and that I was going to crash into them. And so my depth perception was just really off. Luckily, I usually erred on the side of thinking that things that were far away were really close to me. And so I didn't cause too many issues because I was always slamming on my brakes for no reason, not crashing into the back of cars. So luckily this wasn't it just made me an overly cautious, overly stressed driver. I was 10 and 2 and screaming at my kids if they're talking, be quiet, I'm trying to listen. I'd have to turn off the radio. So it was very stressful for me to drive. I almost would never drive. My husband luckily loves to drive, so he pretty much drove all the time. If I was going out with friends, for sure, I never drove, especially if we knew we were going to be coming back when it was dark. So I just didn't feel that comfortable driving. So then I go through vision therapy. I'm still in vision therapy, kind of tapering off of the vision therapy now. And I've had strabismus surgery. My eyes are pretty straight. I've learned how to use them. I've learned how to open my peripheral wide and be able to take in so much more. And driving is probably one of the biggest, I mean, it's like life-changing. This is like the whole reason I even started vision therapy, because it was because I had to be able to drive at night. And that was like my whole goal, was to be able to drive. And I am happy to report that I can completely drive comfortably in pretty much any conditions besides maybe an Idaho blizzard, because I like slippery and no. But pretty much any conditions, I feel very comfortable driving, and it's so amazing. So I'm going to just go through real quickly some of the specific changes that I've seen in the driving, just to kind of compare and contrast. So the tunnel vision and the sequential seeing, where I'm looking from place to place, I don't really do that anymore. I just kind of just see it all at once. And sometimes I'll go back to the old way of sequential seeing or tunnel vision, looking just like at the line, and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't do that anymore. And I open my peripheral, I start using some of my peripheral techniques that help me see bigger, and I just kind of take it all in at once. And so instead of this like 10 and 2, like being scared all the time, I just feel much more comfortable. Like, I know where I'm at in space. I know where other items are, or cars or street signs or whatever. I know where everything is in space. And so I feel much more comfortable in the driver's seat. The lane control, I don't have to watch the lines anymore. And actually, maybe I do. Out of my peripheral, I'm watching both lines on both sides of my lane at the same time, and I can just kind of center myself. And I'm not like perfectly in the middle all the time. I'm still human, but I can see both lines at the same time and center myself inside the car. Like, I just have a much better feel of where I am at in space. And that definitely affects the lane control. At night, for some reason, the oncoming headlights, it's not paralyzing anymore. I just know where they are, and instead of staring at those oncoming lights or staring away from them, I just kind of like relax my vision and just kind of take it all in at the same time, and it's not really a problem anymore. I can just stay in my lane, they're in their lane. Sometimes their lights are really bright, and I'm like, oh, their lights are too bright. But I'm not like driving off the road trying to get away from oncoming traffic. I just am like, oh, that was kind of bright, and then move on. Let's see. Another one is just like little things like changing lanes, or when you have to turn left and there's like traffic coming and you're looking for a break. I just feel like before I would have to wait for this like huge gap because I wasn't quite sure. I was always overly cautious. And now I don't have cars honking at me constantly like, why didn't you go? That was a great opportunity. That used to happen all the time. I would drive my husband crazy because I was so overly cautious that I never would get to turn left. Like, I would avoid left turns like the plague because I didn't know if I was ever going to actually be able to make that left turn. So anyways, I can make those turns. It's not a big deal. I can see those distances, judge how far away cars are. When cars brake in front of me, I am able to, again, judge those distances and not be slamming on my brakes for no reason, right? I just am so much more aware of what's happening. So needless to say, driving has completely transformed. It has changed my life. I can drive at night. I can drive, let my husband sleep, and I drive and take turns, or if my husband's gone, I can, it doesn't even matter. I can drive whenever I want, and it's the best. So vision therapy is amazing. If you want to learn more, you can go to strabismussolutions.com. If you want to learn more about how to improve your peripheral to take in more and see bigger, you can get my Mastering Peripheral course, which is amazing, and it is at learn.strabismussolutions.com. So hope to see you there, and I'll keep coming out with these videos, so keep an eye out for the next one next Friday.